Logan, Satire and Political Hypocrisy.
Such a good title.
Right. It provides this psychological breakdown of a highly specific interaction, and it acts as a perfect microcosm for broader internet behavior.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the glaring hypocrisy at the center of this deep dive, we first have to, we have to look at the initial political stance that kicked this whole sequence of events off.
Yeah, we need the setup.
Right. So our main subject here is Adrian Logan, who is an online commentator based in Ireland. But his focus in this particular instance has absolutely nothing to do with Irish politics.
Not at all.
No, he aimed his commentary all the way across the continent, directly at Finland.
Yeah, he inserted himself into a highly localized, highly volatile Nordic debate.
Right.
In the first post we're analyzing from the source, Logan explicitly and publicly agrees with a controversial policy proposal coming out of the Finnish government.
It's a heavy one.
Very heavy. The policy essentially dictates that immigrants receiving welfare should be required to clean streets and, perform public labor.
Wow.
And Logan frames this in his commentary as, quote, giving back to a country.
Okay, so he's aligning himself with a specific politician here, right?
Yes, he's supporting Riikka Purra, who is Finland's finance minister, and her party, the Finns Party.
The Finns Party.
Or Prusso-Malaiset, as they are historically known in Finland.
Okay, got it.
Now, we are talking about a platform built on right-wing populism and nationalism here. They have heavy anti-immigration stances, they push for cutting welfare specifically for non-citizens, and they have intense Euroscepticism.
So very, very intense policies.
Exactly. It's the kind of highly polarizing platform that automatically draws fire from across the political spectrum.
Yeah.
And Purra herself is a deeply polarizing figure internationally.
Right, because her opponents frequently criticize her policies, and I think her past online writings, too, as xenophobic or discriminatory.
Yes, that's exactly what the source notes. It is a highly charged political atmosphere. But what makes Logan's involvement so interesting is this concept of borderless political tribalism.
Oh, I like that term, because he doesn't live in Finland.
Nope.
He isn't affected by Finnish tax law or welfare distribution or anything like that.
Not at all. He's voluntarily stepping into someone else's arena.
It's like stepping into the ring of a heavyweight boxing match. Like, if you are going to loudly insert yourself into a foreign political firestorm and you're cheering for the hardest, most polarizing punches, these hardline nationalistic policies, you kind of have to expect the crowd to react to you.
You really do?
I mean, let me ask you this. When someone from Ireland voluntarily jumps into such a specific, heated Nordic debate, aren't they basically painting a giant neon target on their own back for internet trolls?
Oh, 100%. You are signaling your ideology, sure, but you're also disturbing a localized ecosystem. The internet operates a lot like an immune system.
An immune system, right?
Yeah. When a foreign body introduces a loud, controversial opinion into a space where it doesn't organically belong, the ecosystem's antibodies will react.
They swarm it.
Exactly. And historically, the most effective antibody against self-serious political hardliners isn't like a well-reasoned debate.
No, it's mockery.
Yes, satire. Which leads us perfectly into the second post from our source, where the internet decides to joke back.
Right, because the internet always reacts. So the source material provides the second screenshot that captures this immune response perfectly. A user operating under the name Marinjutu decided to poke fun at Adrian Logan.
And how did they do it?
Well, they didn't write some 10-page essay dismantling his political views. They just created a satirical theme song and a digital caricature of him, literally titled Adrian Logan FT theme song.
It's just a profoundly unserious response to a person demanding to be taken seriously.
Totally.
Satire functions as this precision tool in political discourse. Its primary goal is to puncture the armor of authority.
To pop the balloon.
Exactly. A theme song with a cartoon drawing is the digital equivalent of a jester in a royal court. It doesn't attack the politician's policies, it attacks their aura of intimidation.
It strips away that whole tough guy aesthetic. So if your entire online brand is built around being this unbothered, truth-telling warrior who champions policies that literally force people to sweep streets, the only logical move when someone writes a goofy song about you is to laugh it off. You toss a joke back or you just ignore it completely.
You have to prove that your skin is as thick as your rhetoric.
Right. But taking the joke requires a level of humility that a purely combative persona just doesn't allow.
Because if you laugh at yourself, you're admitting vulnerability, you're accepting that you are the punchline, And that shatters the illusion of dominance.
And Logan clearly refuses to be vulnerable here because his pivot is it's staggering. He completely short circuits.
He really did.
Instead of ignoring it or taking the joke, Logan immediately goes on the defensive. He lashes out with this wild accusation in the comments. He says, and I quote, "How much are true Finns and Riikka paying you?"
It is a phenomenal collapse of logic to witness in real time.
I genuinely had to reread that in the source material like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just push back on this for a second because it defies all reason. Wait a second. Isn't he accusing the exact same political figures he just publicly supported of funding a smear campaign against him?
Yes. Yes, he is.
How does that logic even work? He just praised Riikka, Purra, and the Finns party for their tough stance on immigrants, and 12 hours later he thinks the Finnish finance minister is funneling state funds to internet trolls to produce parody music about an Irish commentator.
What's fascinating here is how quickly ideological consistency just vanishes the moment an ego is bruised.
It's gone.
Completely gone. You're entirely right to point out the absurdity. It makes zero logistical or political sense. Logan is perfectly comfortable dishing out heavy political opinions, but the moment the satirical edge is turned on him, his skin becomes incredibly thin.
Paper thin.
He completely misreads standard internet mockery. There's no strategic universe where the Finnish government pays a troll to mock a foreign commentator.
Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this because there is a fascinating contradiction right now between modern political messaging and hard demographic reality. Today, we're using Finland as our case study to unpack how political rhetoric can often mask deeper economic truths. And we're going to be navigating this complex topic strictly through the lens of the data and structural analysis provided in our source material. We're going to start with a really puzzling question that sits right at the heart of this analysis. Our source looks at Finnish Finance Minister Riikka Purra's mandatory public labor proposal. Now, the idea presented to the public is that welfare recipients should perform manual tasks, gathering twigs, cleaning streets, just to receive their basic benefits. It sounds like a pretty straightforward demand for contribution, right? But, as we're going to see, it raises a massive question. Why would a seasoned politician push a policy that economists universally flag as unworkable? Section 1. The demographic crisis. A severe shift. To really get the political theater here, we first have to look at Finland's structural reality. And honestly, the math is pretty stark. By 2030, Finland's old age dependency ratio is expected to be among the absolute highest in the world. So on one side, you have a rapidly aging, shrinking native workforce that simply cannot sustain the generous Finnish welfare state on its own. But then on the other side, you've got highly skilled foreign workers in tech, healthcare, and engineering who are essentially keeping the system afloat. I mean, they're contributing heavily from day one to a safety net that they might not even fully access for years. Yet despite all that, political messaging relies on this very specific rhetorical trick. It collapses all immigrants into a single, highly visible caricature of unemployed foreigners just draining state resources. By focusing entirely on that one single demographic slice, the rhetoric deliberately ignores the vital work-based immigration we were just talking about. It essentially paints a picture that is entirely disconnected from the actual structure of the economy. Section 2. Why the math fails. Let's examine the economic distortions. The source details 3 massive economic distortions created by this proposal. First up, it risks destroying real jobs. Think about it. If municipalities have a free workforce to clean streets, they have absolutely zero incentive to hire actual paid municipal workers, which ultimately depresses entry-level wages for everyone on the open market. Second, there's a staggeringly high administrative cost. Forcing thousands of people to do 30-plus hours of unpaid civic work requires an enormous and frankly expensive bureaucracy to manage. Historically, this costs way more than the value of the labor itself. And third, we have the integration paradox. Forcing someone to pick up trash for 37 hours a week completely stalls their ability to take intensive language classes or vocational training. The exact things that would actually lead to high-paying tax-generating jobs. So the crucial point here isn't just economic, it's also legal. Section 19 of the Finnish Constitution and international law explicitly prohibit forced labor under threat of starvation. The source material notes, very impartially, that tying basic survival, literally money for food and shelter, to forced labor directly violates fundamental human rights frameworks. And this structural barrier is exactly why this kind of rhetoric rarely translates into sweeping enforceable law. Which brings us to a glaring contradiction. The analysis points out that Riikka Purra is not uninformed. Actually, she holds a Master of Social Sciences from the University of Turku and has even pursued PhD-level research in international politics. She understands exactly how this math works. So, if she knows the policy will fail, why propose it? Well, the research suggests this proposal must be a calculated smokescreen. Section 3. The political smokescreen. Hiding realities. This is exactly where political theater ends and deliberate strategy begins, designed specifically to hide three structural realities. Reality number one is aggressive austerity. As finance minister, Purra is overseeing severe welfare cuts that directly impact her own native working-class base. So, to manage the political fallout, the strategy becomes misdirection. By aggressively targeting immigrants with performative forced labor schemes, the whole narrative shifts. Instead of the conversation being, hey, the government is cutting your safety net, the story suddenly becomes, the government is finally cracking down on freeloaders. Let's look at the second reality. Historically, the Finns party really championed the ordinary working-class citizen against the elite. But to form a governing coalition with the conservative National Coalition Party, they had to adopt highly corporate, pro-business economic policies. So what's the strategy to cover this shift? Leaning heavily into cultural grievances. By doubling down on identity politics, the party assures its nationalist base that, hey, even if fiscal policies now overwhelmingly favor corporations, we are still fiercely fighting the culture war for you. The third reality is perhaps the most systemic of all: massive brain waste. This happens when highly qualified, educated foreigners end up stuck in low-skilled jobs, like driving taxis or cleaning buildings, simply because their degrees aren't recognized or they face incredibly rigid administrative bureaucracy. The source identifies this as a massive, systemic policy failure in integrating foreign talent. So how does the rhetoric handle this integration failure? By completely flipping the script. Instead of fixing the complex, honestly boring administrative bottlenecks that cause brain waste, the strategy frames poor integration entirely as a moral and behavioral failing of the immigrants themselves. Proposing that they pick up trash neatly condenses a massive, complex structural challenge into a punchy, shareable soundbite tailored perfectly for social media. Section 4. The core blueprint of populism, the political psychology behind the messaging. Let's pull this all together by examining the psychological blueprint that makes this theater so remarkably effective. In political psychology, this blueprint relies heavily on something called affective polarization. This is basically the strategy of eliciting a strong emotional reaction with visually striking but legally impossible proposals, rather than trying to pass a functional bill. So when opposition politicians and legal scholars inevitably express outrage and explain exactly why these mandatory labor ideas violate international law, it doesn't hurt the strategy at all. It actually plays right into it. Because that outrage allows politicians to turn right around to their base and say, look at the out-of-touch elites protecting foreigners instead of standing up for hardworking Finns. This resulting theater acts as a nearly impenetrable shield. It successfully protects the actual, painful macroeconomic agenda, like those austerity cuts and the shift toward corporate economics, from genuine public scrutiny. We're going to end today's explainer with a provocative question. How does recognizing affective polarization change the way you view political theater? The next time you see a policy proposal that seems mathematically or legally impossible, I highly encourage you to use the analytical tools we've explored today. Look past the surface rhetoric, examine the data, and ask yourself, what underlying economic realities might this theater be designed to hide? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep asking the right questions.